Hi all, welcome to the Coffee Break podcast, where each month we interview a creative in the film and entertainment industry. It could be a producer, director, actor, screenwriter, or all of the above. We'll dive into their journeys and the stories behind their work. My name is Lester Platt. I'm the CEO and producer of Steel Studios, and today we are in the company of our dear friend, Crumpacker, film director.
How's it going, man? Good to be here.
How are you, bro?
I'm doing real good.
How's everything?
It's going good. It's been a long time coming for this, so super pumped.
That's good, man. That's good. Well, I mean, you know this. I've been trying to have you in the podcast for the longest time, so I'm thrilled to have you on your own episode right now.
No, I know. We've been chatting about it for a while, so yeah, it's good to finally make it happen.
Cool, man. So, I would like to start with you telling us about some of your backstory. Where did you study? How did you got involved in the film industry?
Mm-hmm.
How you got to be so good at it, and and so on.
Oh, well, that's very flattering. I've just kind of always known I wanted to be a filmmaker. I mean, since I was a kid, there wasn't really another path I wanted to take. So I kind of just always made films, and like a lot of our stories, just every chance I got to make a film, whether that was like a class project or with my friends, I would do little school film festivals. And then I went to film school. I did do that. But it was a great film school. It was at Florida State University. And so it was a little different than a lot of film programs because it was very hands-on. It was almost more of a trade program than a lot of film schools were. We spent time in the classroom, but we each made 4 short films throughout our time, our 2.5 years. And we also crewed every position for every film. So
it wasn't so much of a theory. It was very hands-on.
Yeah, almost to the point where I'm like, it was way more hands-on than theory.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And
That's awesome.
It was also, we were using, at the time, all the digital cinema. We're doing red cameras. We were shooting everything on Epic Dragons, which for an 18-year-old, 19-year-old, it's like, holy crap,
Yeah.
Got the whole 2-ton grip trucks, and we ended with we're doing 17 to 20 person crews, and
holy.
Yeah, I mean, we got real kind of union packages, and so
wow. So that's really great to know, because most of people experiences the contrary. They kind of get bored with the theory stuff, and they don't really get the experience of being on set, let alone a 20-30 people set.
Right. That's the craziest part about it, because when I got out, I mean, every film student, when you get out of school, you think you're a director, and you're not. It's like you're not a director until you've had a ton under your belt. But I will say the benefit of it is that I got a lot of the screw-ups and a lot of the very embarrassing moments kind of out of my system in that environment, and still got the experience of I'm showing my projects on a theater screen in front of a big audience, finding out what's working and what's not. Mm-hmm. I made a lot of those early directing mistakes of just massive communication lapses and just lack of clarity on projects, and kind of the lost in translation stuff that I think every director goes through at the beginning of you have an image in your head and it doesn't end up on the screen. So by the time I started doing client work, out of school, and I started telling people I was a director and getting paid to do it, I felt more comfortable in that I was at least comfortable in the hot seat enough to make decisions, and had felt that pressure before, on what at the time, it's a moderately big scope of you have a lot of people reporting to you, and even though there are other film students and all that, but I think I am so grateful for it. I know a lot of people have very different experiences with film schools, and I'm sure you get asked all the time too from people getting started, how do I get into it? And you're like, well, don't go to film school.
No, I mean, I don't say that, but at least my school was just grabbing a camera and start doing the thing. That was my experience. Yeah.
So what program did you go to?
Program?
You said, or you didn't go to film school.
Yeah. So I started doing photography first.
Right.
And getting gigs for photography, I started realizing that video was I was more not entertained, but video was more attractive to me. It was really hard for me to kind of be satisfied with still images when I could tell a story with 1 minute video or something like that.
Right. And did you have a similar experience like right at the beginning where you're like, have those massive leaps in quality every couple projects?
Oh, dear God, yes, dude. Yeah, yeah. It was. I mean, um, it's you learn from that 100%, and my experience was a lot of you tend to focus too much on the gear that you want, that you need to have, the that you lose you get misguided that it's not about the equipment that you have, but the quality of vision and organization, and all those aspects that make filmmaking like a career. It's not the camera that you may have in the garage or something like that. It's more like how to tell a good story and tell it well.
Mm-hmm. It's funny because I look back and I actually never really got caught up in the quality. I think to a detriment. Like my early stuff, it was always so focused on the story, and like I started as an editor, so I think I approach things as an editor.
That helps a lot, yeah.
And so I'm on set as a director, and I think I've been able to bail myself out of a lot of very bad directing decisions on set with editing.
Yeah.
But it was actually more of a journey of I really liked the story piece, and progressively I was getting more honed in on the technical. And a lot of that technical came from after school too. I started working with a couple other filmmakers in town who I ended up moving here with. And it feels like in hindsight, we all kind of came of age together. We all have different careers, but they were very parallel to each other for a while. And so that was kind of the second phase of film school for me, of like, as I was getting my first couple years of experience with client work and, not just making short films and stories I wanted to tell, but actually, when you have to have precision when you're working with clients.
Of course, yeah.
And so that was this kind of next phase of learning how to do that piece, and being very lucky that I had like a producer and a cinematographer, and like all three of us kind of collaborating very heavily together for those first couple years.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's one thing that, because it's like, I don't know, man, the quality of careers that you guys have been building throughout the years, like Mike Koslenko, John Raines. It's like you dudes are making it. You living the life of a filmmaker, right? Because Mike is super talented in what he does. You're extremely talented at what you do, and then John Raines is like trying, holding two businesses on his name. It's
right. Like, I'm very lucky to have fallen in with those guys, and especially like coming from our hometown. Like we all just were in.
That's amazing, man. That's amazing.
Went to the same college and kind of found each other after, and
that's awesome.
Very grateful for it. And then it's funny, around that time, I got out of school. I was sort of stewing on what I wanted my first project to be, and that's where White Fire came from. And I ended up, I don't know if I've ever told you the story, but I made a documentary in high school about my brother going through his journey with cancer. And it was playing it at a bunch of nonprofit events, and so I was getting it in front of an audience and seeing that it was really resonating with a lot of people. And so I kind of had this urge to like revisit it and dive into that story again. So as I started writing that script, it turned into this much bigger thing that I had initially anticipated. But that project was very much a North Star for me for a long time, of even as I was doing all these commercial projects and getting a career off the ground. All of that stuff almost happened secondarily, of like, okay, I'm just doing this in the meantime while I'm trying to get this film off the ground. That ended up taking 5 years with no intention of that happening. But
that's amazing.
But that's what was so great. It's like if that project had happened at any point before it actually got off the ground, it would have just completely tanked in so many ways. But it's weird because I think I'm like 8 years out of college now at this point. And so it's funny, those like first 5 years of a career, I can look back out now and have enough distance from it to be like, wow, that really worked out.
Yeah. Based on your experience, because, it's really easy for everyone to talk of the struggles, because we all, live the kind of the same struggles, but how did you overcome your own, struggles along the way? Probably which one was of the biggest struggles that you encountered, and how did you overcome that?
I feel like And I'm curious your thoughts too. I think such a massive part of a career as a filmmaker is momentum and generating momentum when you don't have any. And that means in a lot of different ways, from like getting work, from just your confidence in the craft to networking and relationships and the whole thing. And so a thing for me, anytime I felt like I was maybe falling behind or just not hitting it, it was like, just start acting and just start making something. Just do something that would move the ball forward every day. But I know not just the key to getting a directing career off the ground for me specifically was not being exclusively reliant on income from directing for a while, and like always having other skills and just trying to constantly stack skills every year. Like I think a lot of us, you know, it's
100%.
And then eventually it's the paradox we all go through of the less you need that, the more often you get opportunities to do it. So, because you're free in it, you know, you're free. And especially with directing, when you're casting a vision, it very much needs to be from a place of freedom, I think. So that was very key to me, is focusing on other avenues of making money along the way that weren't going to detract from my primary focus. Like, how can I make the most amount of money with the least amount of work so I can devote most of my time and energy to getting this thing off the ground?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, man. I think in my experience I've never had like per se like a vision of when I wanted to finish, you know, because I mean, this is one of those careers that you never stop learning. It's like you cannot get to I'm gonna get to, you know, a certain level and then I'm gonna stop. It's like,
I don't even know what a career means as a director. Like,
yeah, dude, it's like you don't know what's gonna happen from 5 years from now. You know, it's like you're gonna be a different level, maybe in the LA making movies in Hollywood. You never know, but that's the beauty of this profession, that you can still learn and you're never gonna get bored because technology is changing. New tools are being developed every year and stuff like that. So it's like you have that, and it's kind of if dangerous at the same time, because you have that feeling of you don't have to stop. If you stop, you're missing out. You know, if you stop, it's like someone else is gonna do it and not you.
Right.
You know, it's like that fear of
professional FOMO.
Yeah. Professional FOMO, you said it. Yeah, man. It's you know, there's challenges with it that comes. Talking about Wi-Fi. So you mentioned it was like a work in progress for 5 years. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, it was, I would say, even more than a work in progress. It was just a series of just face plants over and over and over for quite a while. And it was also this, it was the second half of my film school in the sense of the business side of it. I just had so many lofty ideas of getting investment and how it was gonna, people wanting to pay for it and finding all of these ways to try to make it a business opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, I want to say sorry about your brother.
Thank you. Well, and he's doing great, by the way.
Awesome,
just to clarify for the podcast, and I guess we didn't really set it up.
Yeah.
White Fire is a film I made a couple years ago about my younger brother, Jake, going through a year of cancer and chemotherapy back when I was a junior in high school. So he was 12 at the time. And I ended up picking up a camera and filming the whole process. So I had the whole thing documented. And at the end of it, it ended up a triumph story where he came through it. He was missing a bone in his leg, but he's doing great. He's just a normal guy, and he's
Beautiful.
Living his life, and very grateful because a lot of people don't have that story,
Yeah. 100%. So by that time you were in school, studying in the filming. So that made you grab the camera and say, I'm going to document this.
It was that was before. It was my junior year of high school. And I think I knew I wanted to be a filmmaker, but that was one of the most instinctive film projects I'd ever done where I just didn't know what to do. Mm-hmm. So it halfway through the process, I realized I'm making a documentary, but it was much more just, I want to capture this for my family and just sort of, to some degree, it's like any filmmaking process, you feel like you're controlling it a bit. And so I think that's where it came from, but that's all where the purity of it came from too. I think of just, very observational and very. It was behind closed doors. Like that's what the documentary was. It was like all of the little moments that happen within a family when illness is happening.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, when I came to revisit that story, I initially was like, I'm just going to recut this documentary as I'm more experienced. I'm a pseudo professional. And then that's when it ended up turning into this kind of more of a narrative approach of I'm going to cast actors. I'm going to really dial into like a point of view here of what I'm trying to say.
And at what moment you decided that you needed a team? Like, dude, I need a producer for this. Like,
it was very serendipitous actually, because I'm writing this script. I'm still living in Tallahassee, Florida. And at the time I'm like working on getting a film education business for high schoolers off the ground. And like that was this big focus of mine. And then I ended up meeting a producer just as like a family friend connection kind of a thing. And then we just hit it off and I was like, oh, by the way, like 3 hours into grabbing coffee, I was like, I'm working on this project. Like this is actually maybe something to be interested in. And so it kind of clicked at that point. And one of the benefits of the core team that eventually congealed around it was everybody was equally incentivized to go make a splash to some degree with a project and go not necessarily make a name for ourselves, but like go make something of high quality and do it together and find something we all collectively could believe in. So I don't know if there was a single moment of, okay, I need a producer, I'm going to go find one. It was just, I kind of just started.
You started with friends.
I just started writing. And then as I was meeting people, I was like, oh, like you'd be great for this kind of a thing. And then I meet a cinematographer through him and it's like, wow, you're really good. Like this would, we should work on something together. So I'm not going to pretend like there was any grand scheme. That's why I feel I'm just very grateful. I'm like, I had very little strategy behind the whole thing from it getting started. But I will say like that was the learning experience of you. When you're making something and you're passionate about it, you're going to be a magnet for the right people.
Exactly. I think that's very important to say because some people it just gets stressful about things that probably not happening the way they want to, right? It's like if you're planning to do something, just start, just start and things will start falling.
Oh my God. And that's the only truth in this career is that you have to start before the opportunity exists. Especially when it comes to relationships. Because even when you're networking and meeting new people, it's like they're gonna ask, what are you doing? What are you working on? It's like, well, I'm planning on writing a script versus I have the script here. What do you think of it? Completely changes the context of every relationship you ever have. So, and I think it's just a waste of time to get too caught up in the step by step. Like you're going in a direction and then from there you just start throwing noodles at a wall and seeing what sticks.
Yeah, dude. And I think that was one of my mottos when I started this thing. It's like, for example, a cinematographer, if you don't have work to show online, who the hell is going to hire you? You know what I mean? If you don't have anything to show that, hey, this is what I do, this is how I do, stuff like that. So I think that's very important. Don't get caught up in the like, okay, step one, find a producer, or it can be like a list of 50 items that you don't even know how that thing's gonna work. It's based on our experience, like we should just start. That's my experience in this little short film that I'm kind of producing next month. It's like, okay, I've been dying to do a short film or a film or something close to a film that I can, say, hey, I was part of this thing. So, but I wanted to do it like I've had like a random ideas and I started writing them. Like before going to bed, I was like, what if I do something about this AI shit that it's going on? So I started writing and a little script came up, and then I share it with a couple of friends, and now they're part of the project, and it's, that's how things happen.
I think that's how all good creative things exist. Is it's ultimately just people who like each other making something they all believe in.
For real. Yeah.
What's the pitch of the film? I'm curious.
So it's this android that it's not gonna be revealed that she's an android at the beginning of the film. You're gonna be realizing what's happening as the film goes by. But at the end, it's like this android is exploring the city and everything, and you probably think, oh, that's cool, right? Like this lady walking around, seeing people, enjoying life, la la la. But then suddenly you start, she gets focused or concentrated in a couple that is kissing and having affection and emotion and stuff like that, and it's something that she cannot relate to. So suddenly she gets so concentrated that she can spend a big part of the day just watching people with those emotions.
Kind of intimacy,
yeah, personal, human touch, that she suddenly you start hearing a beeping sound, and that's where you realize that she has like 2 bars of power. That's where we reveal that it's a
robot,
android,
right?
yeah, a robot, yeah. So she goes back home, and then you realize that it's not that light and beautiful. It's like she killed her creator.
Oh,
and the house is like a mess. You're gonna see a blood spot in the floor, the guy dying on the ground, and she's just concentrating and going to her charging station. That before she gets in, she sees him and starts thinking on the couple, and then she goes to the room, plug herself, starts charging, but then she cannot stop thinking about the couple and the human touch and connection and blah blah blah, that she wants to try it. Then she unplugs herself and goes to the dead body and starts trying to recreate what she saw on the couple, but she dies on top of it.
Wow.
Yeah, because
her battery runs out.
Yeah, her battery runs out. The guy is dead, so they both die.
It's real upper, right?
Yeah.
That's great, man.
Yeah,
it's very unique.
Yeah,
and timely.
Yeah. So we'll see how it comes up. But I don't know if you know Alexei Krivich. He'll be directing this piece. So
great. Okay.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun.
It's there's a freedom that comes from when you get your own project off the ground too. It's just the world opens.
It's
up.
Another level. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so different from pleasing a client, because that's work. That's trying to put things together for a client and make sure that thing is successful. It's another level to just come up with an idea, put people that you appreciate, and put them together and start throwing ideas and kind of planning how to make this thing happen.
And you're the client. You're like, wait. I can do whatever I want.
Wait, what? How much is gonna cost me?
Right, yeah. This does not feel as good being on the side of it anymore.
Cool, man. So going back to Wi-Fi, so how was because I saw it was like a 12 days production, right?
Right. It was a 17-day window, 12-day shoot.
Days. Okay.
Yeah.
So can you tell us something about the process, like how big of a pre-production was, how many people were involved, how much of gear, people, all this stuff on production, how much it was involved on that?
Yeah, for sure. We ended up, so the core team and I we shot it back in my hometown in Tallahassee, Florida. So that was the first major decision. Mm-hmm. It was about 2 years of us trying to find locations and false starts of picking, shoot windows and trying to find a point where, everything would come together. And it took that long to actually solidify a date. And the primary decision point for us was the decision that we were just going to do it and actually launching a crowdfunding campaign. But then also getting a hospital, because getting the medical locations for the film was one of the biggest hurdles, because it's just traditionally difficult to go shoot in those environments anyway. And so when we were open to going anywhere, we were trying to find, classic TV sets in Atlanta. We were looking in California. We were looking here. We approached every hospital we could.
You didn't have Stray Vista by then.
Stray Vista was not around. Man, life would be so much better if they were. But for real, that was one of the when started getting into virtual production and Stray Vista got started, I was like, man, what a beautiful hospital room that could have been. But what was crazy is back in Tallahassee, I kind of had this gut feeling of like it would be great to go shoot this in some of the locations that this actually happened.
Wow.
And that's the romantic answer, and the other answer is like, how much freer would it be to shoot it in my hometown with all the people I know?
Yeah.
But the hospital in Tallahassee happened to be shutting down one of their entire buildings and moving their ICU unit to an entirely new building.
Yeah.
And so they delayed the demolition of an entire hospital wing for us for 2 months.
Seriously?
And they gave it to us. So we had the entire floor of an abandoned hospital, and we were able to we gutted the walls, the room down to the studs, and our production design team built it back up, drywall, like custom design, spec'd out. So it was just one of those, there's so many stories like that are pretty mind-boggling to look back on. Of like, I can't believe that congealed. Yeah. And it's a testament to great producing, I think, in a lot of ways from John and the production side of it. But yeah, that was the kind of the big decision point. And then it was also just as we dove into the script and realized how many extras we needed we needed 150 extras for a cross-country track meet scene, and feeling like it would be the most effective to leverage a lifetime of favors.
Yeah.
That were, let's go burn them all up, baby. That was kind of the thought.
That was the shot.
Right. But yeah, we went back for like a few months leading up to it. I moved back for like 2.5, 3 months before production. Just moved back in with my parents, packed up my apartment here, and drove back. And we were just full-fledged on that pretty much full-time.
What was the experience for your parents?
They were so in. They've always been so supportive of it. They were excited about it. And so we ended up shooting a lot of the film in their house. A lot of the crew stayed in their house. Nice. And, got all of our family, friends, and neighbors were putting up crew and people. And my mom cooked every meal for the crew. She cooked on TV growing up. So she's like a great, great cook. And so she would, down to that level, it was this very family oriented production. I'm sure it was a bit difficult for them having their story plastered, up on the screen like that. But yeah, couldn't have done it without them and the whole community, honestly, like all the neighbors and family, friends, and the whole thing. So that's one of those two that I don't think I'll ever have an experience like that again. It was just such an intimate project, and it was like inviting the industry into my childhood in a lot of ways.
To your life.
Right.
Yeah, man.
In every sense of the word, of shooting the bedroom scene in my childhood bedroom, and because they're the only ones who could tear my walls out.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
I guess. Yeah, man. It's so powerful, right? It's like, and now that I'm a dad now, I can tell you. I'm sure your parents should feel like really proud at. It's not like a network coming to them, hey, we would like to tell your story, blah blah blah. It's like your son is telling the story of your other son, and in a very intimate and personal way.
It's weird to look back on from that sense too, because I never had this. It was just the story had been a part of my life for so long that it's getting some distance from it. I'm realizing that kind of thought. I'm like, oh, I bet this is really meaningful to them. But it was just such a part of our story, and they were so involved with supporting the project for so many years. But yeah, it's one of those that it gave this nice snapshot for my family. And I think that's like any film, it's like you really want to be making it for a very small audience, and that's what's going to make it feel the most intimate.
Personal. Yeah.
Right. I want to take a picture of my family for that little snapshot of time, and everybody else is invited to come watch.
That's amazing, dude. Yeah. So how, based on, you mentioned you did a crowdfunding campaign. Can you tell us more about how it went? Obviously it went successfully, but there were any struggles? There were any?
Just to preface it, Oh, crowdfunding campaign was my worst nightmare. Like I hated the idea of doing one. I always had such a visceral reaction, and I think it was my pride in a lot of ways of just like I want to be able to do this. I don't want to have to publicly ask for money, and it ended up being the most amazing part of the process because all of the people that funded it were the people that like supported my family during that time and other families who had kids go through it, and just this network of childhood cancer kind of families and people surrounding that wanted to see that story told. They were the ones that supported the film. But I will say we didn't get the entire thing funded through crowdfunding. We got a chunk of it done through that, and then like the main core team, like we put in some of our own money, and then we also like took commercial projects and we would throw the margin in for a few years. So that's why I'm also like this is as much John and Mike's film as it is mine from a financial standpoint and everybody throwing their weight behind it. But the crowdfunding campaign itself was very surprising.
Yeah.
Just in terms of when you see people.
Yeah.
Every dollar of someone you know, you're like, that is nuts.
Yeah.
Like, don't give me that. That's your money, bro. Like,
yeah. I've heard a lot about the struggle of crowdfunding campaigns and on film. It's hard. I mean, but it's kind of part of the process. Do you think it's part of the process, like on everything that you want to do, like personal stuff, personal passion projects and stuff like that, if it requires like a certain amount of production days, gear, crew, stuff like that?
It's completely inevitable. I think the thing, and I don't by any means pretend to be an expert on this. I've run one moderately sized crowdfunding campaign, but I struggled for years, and I think one of the reasons it took so long to get off the ground was I tried to make it a business opportunity. Like I was trying to partner with nonprofits, and I was pitching specific donors and like trying to be like, there's, we're going to get it distributed and all this stuff, which I think is good. And I think it's important that every filmmaker has a business acumen and a mindset of that.
Yeah.
But I think at the end of the day, the thing I learned was that people fund films and they fund art because they resonate with it. People want to spend money on things that make them feel good. And I think if, as a filmmaker, if you're finding people that want to give you money because they want that story to exist, that's the core.
Yeah.
That's the core reality of the whole thing.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah, man. So, how long it took after production was done, how long it took to see the final draft?
Well, the best thing that ever happened for White Fire was COVID-19. Totally, that's so bad. I'm joking.
Everyone died.
Yeah, I'm totally joking. I'm joking. No, but having that, the world shut down, like very much like gave me the space to do it.
Time to.
Yeah. It took like a year to edit, and it was just so many drafts of like.
And you edited it.
Yeah, I cut the whole thing, and I was, still working. So like I have other projects going on and other edits. So it was one of those that it took a lot longer than it probably should have. But I think giving myself permission to let it cook was really important, especially for a film like that. But it took a long time because then we ended up, it was also my own music that was scoring the film, and like the film was built around that. And so figuring out, I had this very strong vision of like, it's initially was going to be a bunch of music videos, like sequential, like a music video series.
Okay. And
it ended up just naturally morphing into a film over the years. And so it was also this process in the editing phase of, as it kind of peeling that out of it and just letting the what it was supposed to always be kind of come out.
Yeah. Can you tell me, because you edited, so you have that freedom to be on your desk, on your chair, and watch 5 minutes, 10 minutes of it. Can you tell me, like, probably once that you couldn't stop watching and say, man, this is good?
Like in which specific scenes?
Yeah, something that kind of trapped you.
There was, the opening scene was always the one I've had in my head for years. Like that was the first image of the film is the Rubik's Cube, like this kid solving a Rubik's Cube, and that being this kind of metaphor through line of him kind of coming to terms and kind of his soul clicking together, and accepting the situation he's in. And I think just as the opening sequence snapped together, it was definitely the moment where it's 3 a.m. and you're just like, I should go to bed, but I just need to watch it for 2 more hours.
A couple more times.
Right. I need to watch it. I'm not going to do anything to it. I just need to see it.
Funny you say that. I went to bed at 4 a.m.
Last night?
Yeah, last night, editing another video.
You're doing great right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to put a couple of filters on this camera so, my skin looks bright.
It looks great fresh. To me. Yeah.
Yeah,
but
man.
that was one of them. There's a scene with the main character and then this young girl who was in the hospital at the same time, and she gives him the Rubik's Cube. And it's like later in the film, so it's kind of a little bit out of order. But I remember that moment of just these two kids connecting, and I felt so proud of that moment, because it was also this girl who was a local actor in Tallahassee, Florida. She was like from the Young Actors Theater there. And she was so nervous on set, and it was to me it was just an incredibly powerful performance, and just like her first time being on screen, just the way they just connected. And I remember as that scene snapped together, I still watch it and I'm like, man, that really came to life. Like that feels
that's awesome.
Feels really good.
That's great, man. So is there talking about after post-production, what was the process of you submitting the film into festivals and Apple TV?
Yeah.
Hello.
So
hello.
Thanks, Apple TV. I ended up not getting accepted to any festivals. I submitted to like 4 or 5.
Okay.
I submitted to like South by when it was still in the rough draft phase. So no hard feelings, South by. You would accept it if you saw it finished, but that's okay.
Yeah, South by.
Yeah. But ended up, I kind of always knew that it was from a business perspective. And just putting on the producer hat for a second, I was like, this is not designed to go make a festival run. It was a 35-minute short film. And it's probably the worst, from a business perspective, the worst format of a film you could make from a festival run or distribution or anything like that, because it's just short of a feature, even though it's a feature scope and the financials behind it, but it's too long. It's going to take up an entire festival short slot. So I kind of always knew, I was like, I really just want this to end up getting some sort of distribution. And the original plan was to partner with Children's Miracle Network and play it at their fundraising events on college campuses, which I did do a few, and it was awesome. Like getting to play it for, it was like thousands of college kids in giant auditoriums, and it was very powerful seeing that, and that gave me the emotional payoff. And then actually the whole distribution process was through Castor Studios.
Oh,
so they have a distribution arm to things, and I was just working with them, and then I showed them the film, and they're like, we have a distribution arm, and the producer there kind of I called him. I was like, hey, like, let's just chat about, can you give me any insight into distribution and what a good approach to this is? Like, I don't know anything. And he was like, well, are you asking me if you want to get it distributed, or just asking my advice? I was like, well, since you bring it up, yeah,
there you go.
Yeah. So, and then it was one of those, I kind of learned the process through that experience too. And I knew the process. I've known people who've gone through it, but going through it yourself is always different. And then it was just the process of it getting accepted to all the places. And everyone was like a nice surprise of like, wow, Apple TV is going to take it, and it ending up on Amazon Prime and like all that. So
that's amazing.
That was the closing the chapter of like, okay, it exists in the world for a place to people to watch it. And
so people can actually find it in Apple TV and Amazon.
Yeah, it's on it's like on 20 different platforms, but the main, like the bigger, well-known name platforms like Apple TV, YouTube TV, Amazon Prime.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool, man. So what is the biggest lesson that you can take from Whitefire? Like a filmmaker, director.
From a creative standpoint, I think, that really solidified my prep process in a lot of ways, of realizing how I'm a planner, and like that's very much how I approach it. But
that is cool. It's like it taught you a little bit about how you work and your process. Because one thing that I admire from you is like the process that you have for you don't kind of do a storytelling. You kind of shoot video on your phone and kind of have this, kind of how would you call it? Like,
I like to do, I mean, I guess they're storyboards. I call it animatics, but I don't think that's the right word for it. So hopefully no one quotes me on that. But I like to go shoot the film with my phone if I can. And like every project I do that's going to have actors, like a traditional process around it, I want to go cut the film together. And I think that's part of the editing brain of like, I like to know that an edit's going to work beforehand. And there's been every year that goes by, I get better at editing in my head, and the filmmaking process is messy. So you're always, whatever your plan is, it's not going to happen, obviously. Like it'll never end up.
It'll never going to happen.
That absolutely not. But it's always helpful to have gone through the entire process and know it that deeply. And that was that film. It was down to the frame. Was kind of what ended up on screen in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I think doing that, it kind of shows you the struggles or the difficulties that you might encounter in the actual set, right?
For sure.
Kind of make your brain working. Okay, this is what happened when we were, testing. This is how we're gonna fix it.
For sure. And I think another, like from the filmmaking and directing craft of the visual storytelling side, that really solidified my process of how I like to think about it and approach it. And I think it was the first project I'd ever done where I spent a large, generally speaking, collective amount of time with actors and realizing that everyone needs to be communicated with differently, and figuring out how to do that. Because I don't really have a theater background or an acting background. I have experience on screen, but it's all been very secondary to the filmmaking side. And so kind of learning what that line is between a director and an actor, and finding that and getting
balance
into a pocket with it of how to communicate with every actor differently was a huge takeaway from that. And then I mean, I think it's kind of what we talked about earlier of like the large lesson is you just have to start. Like from the project holistically, it's like if you start and you make the commitment that I may not find a producer, and so I'm just going to learn how to produce this film. And then if you're just willing to do it, you will be free enough that you will attract the right person to do it. And that was every step of it, from the actors to the team to the distribution to the just being willing to go figure it out yourself. Is the key to getting one of those off the ground.
That's awesome, dude. Yeah, I think it's a great lesson. It's like, if you want to do something, start, right? Just start.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, man. So, so after Wi-Fi, the biggest thing you've done, it's a kids show.
Biggest narrative thing, yeah, for sure. Well, yeah, no, biggest thing, for sure.
How it came up to you? How I know Castor Studios, I've been hearing a lot about them. Shout out to them.
Shout out Castor.
Yeah, man. They already have like a season ongoing on season 1, right?
So season 1 got made a couple years ago. Actually, I wasn't involved in that. That was theirs. But the Gus Plus Us, the show, actually they made their first iteration of it and first pilot prototype 10 years ago. Wow. So it's been that's been their very long-term project. Cool. So I'm very late to the game in terms of it's their project in a lot of ways, or it is their project. But I've just had a relationship with them for years now, and we've been talking about it the whole time. And I was super grateful when they asked me to come on for season 2. It's a big deal to trust somebody with your baby, and
I can't even imagine. And how was the process, the thought process for you? And because it's already an ongoing thing, they already have a season 1. How was the process for you to kind of put ideas together and stuff?
It was a whole new experience for how I approached the filmmaking process, because it was this weird blend of, you have to have a narrative mindset because you're a narrative director, but then also there's a client side of it. And so, because it's like, it's their vision, and I'm trying to figure out what is solidified already as part of the world and part of the vision. And I think I'm just describing what it's like to direct television, because there's showrunners and then the directors come on per episode. And so this was just my first time in that experience. So finding what that line was and how to do that was humongous like learning experience for me of figuring out how to approach it mentally.
Yeah.
But a lot of it was just spending time. You know, it's like anything. It's like you can't get so honed in on like, okay, we're going to do this, and that you can't get too mechanical with it. It's like you just have to spend time in osmose what they're thinking and what you're thinking, and as everybody's sharing their ideas, and that's what I've loved about working with them is they're so open about ideas, and it's about let's get all the ideas out and kind of find the one that's rising to the top.
That's great.
And so, especially as my first like third party like narrative directing I'm not directing my own narrative, I'm directing someone else's, which is, you know, the dream of every director is to do professional narrative. Right.
Yeah.
It's just such a great experience from the kind of team side of it and the environment that was made around it. I think it took me a couple weeks into production to really feel like I was in the pocket of like, I know these characters, and having to get the confidence of the mental jump of like, okay, I'm not directing your characters. It's like, I get to have a take on this too, you know? And I think there's a pressure when it's someone's had their baby for 10 years and now you're asked to do it. It's a big jump.
Well, Corey, it's been a pleasure to share this time with you. I hope it's not the last time that we have you here. Whenever you make the next stream happen, I'm going to have you in this chair one more time.
Love it, man. This was a blast. Thanks for having me. Seriously.
Yeah, man, absolutely. And to all our listeners, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
Do it.